Hi friends, I wanted to try something a little different with you today. Something a bit more free-flowing and creative. The part of watercolor that I love the most is the fact that we can't control it entirely. It definitely has a very strong voice, and even the fact that we can't correct it, I think really teaches us something about nature in general, in that there's a certain amount of guidance that we can give and there's a certain amount of direction that we can have, but ultimately the medium itself of watercolor will just do what it needs to do, and it's I think a quality that we as artists can really learn from, in just letting go a little bit and really looking at some of the innate qualities that watercolor has that make it a really meditative medium. And I think that sharing that with you will maybe give you some insight in how you too can just play and be forgiving and create something that is a little bit more connected to you on a creative level, rather than really trying to come up with a painting that looks exactly like something. And that will release you from any kind of judgment, but it will also allow you to tap into that beautiful magic and learn the language of watercolor in a different and perhaps even deeper way. So grab a coffee, grab a tea, grab a glass of wine if you want to sit back and relax and just enjoy watching the process, or grab your paints and join me right here and enjoy this creative flow and this meditative medium. Bring yourself to a nice quiet space where you can just feel alive and feel connected to that force of watercolor, and get a little closer to it as a medium, and perhaps get a little closer to yourself in the meantime. Thanks for being here. Before you begin, you may want to take a few deep breaths just to ground yourself. You can pull out some 140-pound cold press paper or hot press paper and tape it down onto a support structure. You can of course use a pad of paper or a block if you don't have loose paper to work on. I'm securing my paper to my support board with masking tape. I'm going to be using a variety of tools and paint colors, all of which you can consult in the list below in the description. I'm using tools that are a little awkward or a little bit more playful and will yield more unpredictable results. That's the whole point of this particular exercise. So in this case, a variety of brushes, a dropper, a spray bottle, a bamboo nib, and even this rubber spatula that I normally use for oil painting. I'll also be introducing some inks in alongside my watercolors. Squeeze out the color, maybe about a quarter teaspoon in each of the wells. We will be adding water to further dilute and make sure that the color saturation is quite fluid. I'm also dropping a little bit of ink into individual wells. In this landscape, we will have a large part dedicated to the sky, so I am pre-wetting my paper, but I'm intentionally skipping some areas to, again, encourage some spontaneity with the flow of the paint on the surface. Can you remind yourself to let go and don't worry about what are trees, what are clouds, what are hills, what are mountains? Just let the paint flow on the wet surface and experiment with different brushes, different brush shapes. Change the pressure of the bristles against the paper. Create a variety of thick and thin lines. And remember to give yourself permission to play. Try tilting your board surface and letting the paint run and see what shapes come out of this free-flowing opportunity. Stay curious. What happens when we wet the paper inconsistently? Where will the paint go? How will it react as we run our brush over both dry and wet surfaces? This is all part of learning to connect with the medium and discovering the possibilities and the language of watercolor. Here I've decided to deepen the sky color, so pre-wetting the sky with clean water is the best way to let the paint flow freely over the surface. Working on a dry surface will give me much cleaner lines, but again, I want to have some spontaneity, so I'm using a palette knife to create texture and I'm dragging it across the surface. As we move towards the finish line, I like to add a little bit more contrast on dry paper and really some more calligraphic lines. So I'm using a really interesting dagger brush here, which is quite characterful. Gives me big, bold strokes as well as some really tender and intricate strokes. Add any contrasting bits that you think will help to enhance the landscape and create a little bit more depth. A really fun new tool that I have added to my repertoire is this bamboo nib, and I like that, again, I don't have a lot of control over the exact quality of the line that I'm going to end up with. Sometimes I get big beads of ink and other times I get really skimpy, skinny, skippy lines, and it's the variety that really adds the character and I think a much more natural looking tree branch and tree trunk. If you really like this, please let me know. Like, share, I even hit that super thanks, which gives me a little bit of extra support and encourages me to continue creating free content for you guys here on my channel. Thank you so much for being here and for allowing me to be part of your journey. Bye for now.